Okay. And very carefully walk over here. We're doing a prophetic movement right now. As I tiptoe around the narcissist and sit down carefully. If you make one wrong move, everything just blows
we're
up.
having setup issues.
Okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to today's live broadcast on Facebook. This will also premiere on YouTube, Punished for Protecting. And on YouTube, it's actually Punish No More, Free to Protect, which is the second stage or the second phase of not being punished for protecting anything in your life that you should be able to protect freely, especially children. Today I have a very special guest, my sister, my longtime friend of, gosh, how many
30
years?
years.
30 years. 30 years. Amazing.
Yep.
Have we ever had an argument in 30 years?
No, never.
A disagreement?
No.
Oh.
I mean, we could have maybe. No, I don't even think so. No.
I don't even think so.
No.
We might not have agreed on some things, but we never
argue.
Never argued.
No.
So this is Cyndy Lou. I call her Cyndy Lou.
Cyndy Lou who?
Cyndy Lou who? Cyndy Broad. And so we're here today. Cyndy has a great wealth of information on narcissism and so
Life experience, unfortunately.
Life experiences, which tends to be the best sometimes because
yes,
you know, I mean, when you live it, and they're having all these awesome people on. I've been watching on YouTube. They're going to talk about this one today. But they have these awesome people on YouTube, and they're called life experts.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what better, you know, than these life experts, because they're literally just sharing what they've been through, what they physically have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is the best, to me, it's one of the best ways to really gain knowledge and information on this subject. We're going to talk about this today, the continuum of self. Can you kind of touch on that? It starts with codependency, works this way over to pathological.
I was introduced to Ross Rosenberg by a friend. I was dealing with some relationship issues, and she recommended I check him out. Ross Rosenberg, he wrote the book, The Human Magnet Syndrome, and this pretty much summarizes Ross's work in The Human Magnet Syndrome. It's a great book. It's on Audible, too, by the way. And what it's telling you here is you have codependency on one end and you have narcissism or pathological narcissism on the other. And the further out you get from the middle, the more unhealthy you are. The Human Magnet Syndrome talks about if you are at a level, let's say +1, you're going to attract somebody who's a -1 and so forth. So it's like a magnet. You're going to attract the opposite polarity. And so if you're attracting a real extreme narcissist, unfortunately that means that you are extremely codependent. So the further you get towards the center, the healthier you are. It's a neutral point. Nobody really is a zero. You're going to have people who are, you know, -1, +1, that's more healthier, -2, +2. Once you start hitting 3, 4, and 5, that's where you really start getting unhealthy on both ends. We tend to think of codependence as the good ones and the narcissists are the bad ones, but you know, we have to take our power back and stop blaming other people. Yes, of course, narcissists are very difficult to deal with, but we have to look at why are we attracting these people into our lives. So Lily's over there snoring, so in case you hear something,
it's not us.
It's not us. So yeah, and on the codependent end, you're going to have people who are about others. They like to help others. They love helping others. And then on the narcissistic end, you have people who are about self. So you have others and you have self. And of course, these people come together like a magnet because the narcissist is all about themselves, and you love giving to people. So that's really how they attract to each other. And if you start finding that you're in a pattern where you're attracting these extreme narcissists, that's time to say, okay, I have to start looking at myself. A lot of these things come back from childhood and things that we're mirroring from our relationships with our parents and what we're looking for, that needs that weren't met by our parents. So things that happen in relationships, they also are what happens in our relationships with our parents. So you could find that you could have a bunch of narcissistic friends and you don't even know it, because they make fabulous friends, narcissists. they love to be the superhero because they like to, flex that muscle and be like, yeah, this is what I did for my friends. They don't do it because they want to help necessarily. They're doing it because they want to show that they have this cape, that they're a superhero, and look at me and how great I am. So they really make great friends. But when you start getting into relationships with these narcissists, they're very invalidating, very difficult to deal with. You're not allowed to have emotion. All kinds of things happen there, but that's a whole different thing. But this continuum of self really summarizes his book very well. And once I started to really understand this, and basically all relationships kind of fall on this.
In this spectrum.
And you're always going to have someone who's a little bit, like I said, -1 + 1 is fine. You're going to have someone who's a little bit more about others and someone who's a little bit more about themselves, but it's on a healthy
plane.
Yeah, on a healthy plane.
Normal, healthy relationship.
That's pretty much.
So do you think that
summary.
narcissists ever have normal, healthy, like we have a friendship of 30 years and I have friends of 30 years plus that same kind of relationships we have and you have with other people that do you think that a narcissist can actually have a healthy relationship or a friendship where you can have this type of normalcy?
They can have healthy friendships that appear healthy. There's still a need that they're trying to fulfill in their friendships, but it really comes out in their relationships. And I don't think the further you are, unfortunately, I don't like to say people are beyond help, but the further you are out on the spectrum, it's most of the time narcissists aren't the ones that get help. It's the codependents.
Right.
And
that'll
it's
go for
very,
therapy, that'll go for counseling.
Yes, and it's very unlikely that, and it can happen, but it's very unlikely that that a narcissist will change their spots. Unfortunately,
a lot of times, I noticed with this behavior, they're so I mean, we say manipulative, but to look at it like I guess more of a science or whatever, they seem to have built these characteristics about themselves throughout years and years of no therapy, no help, no counseling.
Yes.
So it's kind of their identity, I would say, at this point.
And the covert narcissist is the most dangerous, I think, and they don't realize that a lot of this is hidden in their subconscious. They don't know that there's things throughout their whole entire childhood that have shaped them into this person, and so they use these manipulative tactics, but they're not always overt. They're very covert and in nature, and that's what makes them so dangerous. And it's just all in their subconsciousness. So they think that they don't need help, that everything's just so normal. And they think it's normal too.
They're pointing at somebody.
Yes, and it's all projection. But they think that they're normal because they haven't really delved deep and understood where all of that is coming from.
No, I've been literally binge watching many of these people on YouTube mostly. So it's this.
And Dr. Ramani is great. Lisa Romano. I'm trying to remember.
Narcology.
Yeah.
And they're all saying the same
There's
thing.
There's plenty of information out there,
guys. So
guys.
much information out there. But sadly, the world is becoming more and more narcissistic.
Unfortunately. Yes.
And then, as you know, I'm exposing so many different things with the child trafficking and the pornography and the modeling industry and the constant taking selfies of those are narcissistic traits. And then you've got the mirroring. Then you've got like normal people. And I actually talked about this one time. People would say Jesus was a narcissist. Now we know he wasn't. He's pure, but he was the center of attention. He was giving a message. So narcissists can mirror what normal decency is doing, and yet I think it all is maybe motive. I would have to say it's motive.
Yes.
So it's like we're doing a lot
They're
right
always
now.
looking for their supply. That's
They're
their
looking
motive.
talk about that. They're looking for the supply.
So their supply is what feeds them. So they want people to need them. They want people to think they're great. They love compliments. That's their supply. And codependents are perfect for that too, because
we want to give.
We want to give. We want to make people feel good.
Right.
And they want to feel good.
Right.
So we want to make people feel good, and they want to feel good. So that's their supply. That's what they live on. And then you know, when they're in a relationship that's starting to turn and the person's just tired of it being a one-way situation,
right.
that's when you get into the discard phase and they realize that, you know,
The
hey,
false allegation phase,
false
the projecting
allegation,
everything on you phase.
projection, and all of that. Yes.
Now I learned about the flying monkeys, so that's where and today it's much easier for narcissists to study you, especially in the public eye. But we're all in the public eye when we're on Facebook, let's face it. So they can really study who you are as a human
and
being.
all your public posts.
And everything they love about you, they all of a sudden now hate about you.
Yes.
Notice that? But what about the flying monkeys? What is that? Because I've had that actually happen to me. Literally
you know,
happen
not
to me.
my monkeys, not my circus, but you know,
Not my monkeys.
the flying monkeys is just they gather up people to.
I call them weak-willed people. I call them like the weak-willed, but like the Bible talks about the weak-willed.
And they like to gather up people to, and then that's kind of triangulation as well. So they like to have this attack on you, and they like to gather other people into their attack, and that's basically what flying monkeys are.
So we talked about this before we went live, so that people understand. So a lot of times what happens is now you've seen them for who they are. So in my personal situation, I saw traits all along. I showed you a lot of the screenshots, and you were like,
yes, but we downplay them because we saw the original person that we thought was the real person in the love bombing phase, because they show us this great, wonderful person that they're portraying,
about you.
and of course that you needed them to be because they studied you. So that person that you needed, and you're always looking to get back to that person.
Right, not anymore.
Exactly.
Not anymore.
But you're always making excuses because you're like, oh well, this person, either they'll give you sob stories and they'll say this
Lots
person,
of sob stories constantly.
you know, had this going on.
So your fixer feeler goes up. Their sob stories make you go, oh, I help.
Yeah, you want to fix them. You want to make them feel good, and you know, so. But all of that eventually falls apart. It's all a mask. It's all a facade.
And you mourn and I told people, mourn the mirage of who they were, and then you're free.
Yes.
And then you work, and then you continue to work on yourself, so it never happens again, and you don't bring that kind of person into your life again. Which sadly in today's world is probably a lot easier to bring them in than it isn't, because unfortunately there's a lot of wounded people out there that refuse to get the help that's out there. There's tons of help out there. But one of the things I want to talk about was the flying monkeys. Ooh.
Oh.
Oh, hello. No phone call right now. No phone calls right now. So one of the things that I notice is that in my particular, and I don't know if this has happened to you or anybody that's watching right now, and we're here to validate you today. If you've been through this or you're going through this, you may be in a relationship where you're being completely narked out. But this person literally drew to themselves. And that's how I learned that they were narcissists too. So they'll draw other people to them to attack you in your character. They assault your character.
Yes.
So I have to say, for me, and I don't know about you or anybody watching, if I didn't have the longevity friends, you know, the stable environment, I'd be a real mess, because I'd be like, wow, am I really these things? And you know,
the ones who aren't your real friends don't know you well. They're going to be perfect flying monkeys.
Yeah.
And they're going to they're more apt to go to that side because they had
a motive to begin with anyway. In my case, they had a motive anyway. And it doesn't matter how good you are to these people.
No,
it doesn't matter. In fact,
because
they're just ready to stab.
Yeah, and take, and
it's very terrible. I mean, we're both Christians, so to me, it's a very demonic thing. It's very evil. It's of Satan. The devil's a liar. So they are liars. They don't have a pure heart. They don't have pure motives. So it's been a very, very valuable lesson for me to learn, because I will be I don't want to become cynical in any way, shape, or form. I want to stay in the peace of Christ in all of this, and I want to stay but I will never give like I have, ever, unless the Lord really says to me, give here, or don't give there. That was a learning lesson.
You can have a giving heart, and you can feel compelled by God to give. When it starts feeling like it's detrimental to you, or where it's draining of your energy, or even your bank account, or just your it's then that's not what God wants anyway. And if you're giving too much, that's something else you have to look at and see where you are on the spectrum.
Right. And if it's it's obviously an enabling aspect.
Right.
which one of the things I learned, and I already kind of knew this part, was that narcissists are generally addicts.
Yes.
And that's a tough
And that's
call.
because they're not dealing with things in therapy. They're
Right.
dealing with it in other ways. They're
Right.
dealing with it in harmful ways, with alcohol,
Yeah. Pill bottles.
you know, pills,
Drugs.
and so they have to. That's their unfortunate,
That's
their
their
unhealthy therapy because they don't go to therapy. They have to use those kinds of substances to get through.
Right. Or some of them have porn issues, so there's that addiction, sex issues, so there's that addiction. So, because a lot of times people think that addiction is just, you know, a drug, but it's drug of choice. So what is your drug of choice? And if you don't have Jesus as the center of your life, you're going to idolize something. And one of the things that we talked about was they use their children. They literally use their children, which is a codependent hub, which if you study addiction, which is, you studied all of this, I started studying this because of the situation. I studied, and I don't know if you ever have, I studied like the hub of addiction, the wheel, and how it works. And so, but these things are very much interrelated. And again, it's because they're substituting something instead of the place of God, which should be number one, foremost in your life.
Always.
Which led us to talk about, and you've heard of this too, which led us today to talk about and discuss people that say that they're putting their children first. Now, because I work in this children atmosphere, and children are
everybody.
my life.
Of course, children are children are our hearts, our soul.
My own and other people's children are my
Yeah.
life. Okay, literally my life's work, my life's dedication, my life's passion. They are truly our future, and they don't have much of a future in this world if we don't fight. However, and I want to ask you about this, but however, because I fight so hard for children and I love children, I had an incident recently where the first time in my life, children didn't like me. That was mind-blowing to me because children literally come to me from strangers, and I've always had this, you know, children and animals, you know, but one of the things that I dealt with was children come first, and it made no sense to me because it's biblically completely out of order.
No, it's completely out of order.
And in broken families, they should be able to model healthy parental male, female roles. What is your take on that?
Well, my take is when somebody says that the children come first, that's it sounds great because it sounds wonderful. But you know, when you're in a relationship and someone has kids and they're saying, well, you know, hey, my kids come first before anything else. When you're in a committed, healthy relationship, that's not the way it should be.
Well, first is the godly order.
There's a godly order. God's always
Family.
first, and then you have your spousal relationship or your significant other. When the children are seeing that kind of continuity between two people, it just automatically benefits the children because the main thing with the child is that they need to feel safe. They feel safe when you have two people who are really loving and caring and are putting that relationship between them and the relationship with God first. And I'm not saying, you know, your kid's hungry and you're
Right.
having a 5-course meal somewhere. That's
Without
not
the kids,
no.
right? No.
But and I think you know when
That's the
somebody
healthy balance.
says, you know, oh, my kids come first. If you're in a healthy,
Well, toss
committed,
out the
If you're in a
female or the male out of the relationship
Right.
because your kids come first.
but if you're in a healthy, committed relationship,
It's
and
abnormal.
the thing that I don't understand about that is because you have the people that you love, they are your priority, all of them. It's your significant other, spouse. You have your children. You have your pets, your animals that we love. So there's Lily snoring. And they all are the priority on the same level. You don't put people on levels. Let's say, okay, your kid is more important or this person's more important. Everybody you love is kind of on the same level.
Right, it's just different
And
types.
you have to go by, you know, who's in most need at that time. So is your child having difficulty in school, or is your spouse or your significant other, did they just, you know, get assaulted last night, heaven forbid, or
lost a job.
or lost their job, and they're, you know, so you put the people you love, you can't put them on levels like that, and I think that's a way for someone to kind of diminish you or put you lower
down in that character
and
assassination.
make you feel like you're lesser than.
Right.
And
The only time personally, like, for me personally, I have a child that's under my roof. My other child is raised and married. But in that particular case would be, first of all, I'm very cautious. I don't just date. I don't just let men in my life around my child. So when I get in a committed relationship, I thought I was doing the right thing. Of course, I found out different, but that's, you learn. But my point is, in a healthy, normal, committed relationship, that's one thing. You want that support. That's the normalcies of life, and it's biblical. However, the only time I would say you don't want your child comes first is that person is beating you, that person is shooting up heroin, that person is smoking dope with the children, that person is, you know what I'm saying, then if you say, but if you have a normal health,
that's an immediate danger to the child.
That's an immediate danger, and even
the courts coming from your significant other, you have to protect the child.
Right. But we're talking in terms of normal,
healthy, committed relationships.
Committed people.
Yes.
And then when a narcissist says, well, now all of a sudden I'm putting my children first. All of a sudden. But you didn't for the whole relationship.
Right. And there's something off there. They're using that as a tool. And
it's a diminishing of your character.
It's very diminishing, yes.
And then it's also portraying to people that something is wrong with this person. I have to put my children first. Which my first thought would be, well, then they're shooting up heroin, they're beating you, But then you find out, well, what did this person do to you? Did they cheat on you? No. Did they do drugs? No. Were they nice to you? Yes. Did they make sure you had things?
But for you to speak out against saying, oh, well, now you're putting your children first, it's making you look bad because you're like, oh, well, who doesn't understand that? You put your children first. Of course you do. Like, that's silly. Everybody knows that.
Right.
But, so if you were to, sorry, that's my phone. If you were to speak out against that, you'd be like, well, you're a child advocate. What are you talking about?
Right.
So it's all.
But that's part of being a child advocate, is saying that we're supposed to model a healthy, whole life.
Yes.
And actually, biblically speaking, holiness means wholeness.
Yes.
So we're supposed to model, and who's to say that God was wrong in his assessment of the order? If that order is upside down or backwards, then we're saying that God is wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
But that's the way this country's going right now.
But the way the country, everything is upside down.
This country was built on biblical foundations, on God. Yeah. And that's why people want to tear down our country and want to tear down and burn our flag, because they want nothing to do with God.
Right. Take everything out of the proper, order.
Yes.
So, but and as a child advocate, I firmly feel, especially from broken homes, especially if one parent, we know happens all the time, a nice person meet somebody and then the courts force you into that constant abusive situation. So when you're out of that and you finally do move on with life, you want to model to your children that healthy parental figures, that when you have an argument, because people could have an argument, you work that out and you're showing the children how that works out, and how you don't just end it, you don't leave, you don't trash talk the person, you don't, all these different abusive techniques that we find that narcissists do, because they don't want to be seen for who they really are.
I think that needs to go to like +10.
Plus 10. Right, that is
we'll
true.
Talk to Ross about that. But
right, that is funny that it goes to. And now does he do is there a test that people can take to see where they are in this?
If you read the book, The Human Magnet Syndrome, he will discuss things to help you see what level that you're on. Okay. So, you'll be able to see what traits you might have, and see where you fall on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much a test, but he'll help you self-identify.
Now, I've had it because of my role and because of what I do publicly and privately as well, because I don't put everything on Facebook. Many of the families I work with, I keep them very confidential and covered for their protection, because it's just like the president gets constantly attacked, constantly, right, wrong, or indifferent, he's constantly attacked when you're in the public eye, and we see it all the time. If somebody has millions of viewers on Facebook, on YouTube or whatever, they have 700 trolls. It just depends on the amount of publicity they're getting. I have had people, which it kind of blew my mind, because they were setting me up to attack, which is something that I learned after all of this. Mm-hmm. And that's when I learned more about narcissism and how these people, flying monkey, flying monkey, so I believe that has to do with like the Wicked Witch, and then the flying monkey,
yes.
She controlled them.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that she controlled them until the end, and then they poured water on her, which was great. So, but let's face it, and actually the Bible calls that Jezebel Ahab. So Jezebel would be like the narcissist, or Jezebel would be like the Wicked Witch, so to speak. And then Ahab is the spineless spirit. And God actually said that Ahab was more wicked than Jezebel. And the reason God saw Ahab as more wicked than Jezebel is because Ahab had the opportunity to make it right and didn't do that. Instead bowed down to Jezebel and did her bidding. Okay, so that's an important thing, because we were talking about this earlier. You know, all these psychology terminologies that man gives, which are very good and right on, the Bible gives a spirit behind it. And so this would be, you know, narcissism would be Jezebel. Those that are the flying monkeys, or I don't know what they call it in psychology, but would be more like the Ahab. So I had a woman that came to me. She knew every detail of every issue. She literally interrogated me like I was with the police, you know. And of course I'm answering everything honestly, because I have nothing to hide. I've never been that person, probably too much so. And at the end of the day, instead of her repairing what damages were being done, because it was all hearsay and nonsense, and she knew by the end of that conversation, she knew. I mean, I showed her my Verizon phone logs. She knew, and she added more. Instead of doing the right thing, she did the complete Ahab thing, the wrong thing. And in saying that, I realized that these people are extremely, I feel, dangerous. I feel manipulative. I feel that they will study you. They will watch.
They have an image to protect.
Wow, it's just amazing. They'll watch how you breathe in and out. I mean, they will find fault in the most insane things, and it's all character assassination.
Yes, it is.
And I believe, why do you think that they go after your character once you see who they are?
Well, because then if you speak out against them, your character has been attacked, so who's going to believe you?
Right, so they'll say you're crazy, which is the classic.
Yeah,
Crazy is the classic.
Classic. Well,
you've been saying all these years, but suddenly you're crazy.
Yeah, you're crazy.
And you were great the whole relationship.
No, but actually, that's a little more overt. But what a covert will say to you is, don't be silly, or you're overthinking.
Yeah.
Or that's ridiculous.
Right.
Like that's what like a covert will do. But then as time goes on and they really start, the mask comes off. It's like, oh, you're crazy. You're nuts.
You're crazy. You're nuts.
Yeah. So of course, if you're
a
nuts,
liar.
how can you say anything bad about them? Because then you're crazy. So that's why they do it.
Right. And it's got to be harder if they targeted somebody like me, or somebody that's in the public eye that does have a very respectable persona. Like you know what I'm saying? Right? Somebody that people trust. People know they can trust. People know that you're going to get the truth here. So of course I'm going to have to really knock this. I'm going to have to work with a few others to help me get this person's character assaulted, so that they don't find me out who I really am and who I've been showing the world.
Yes, but that can be dangerous, because we would want to strike back and attack them, but really all that does is show your character. So
that's right.
We just have to stay in the Lord. We have to remain positive. We have to expose. It's important to expose lies and bring the truth to light. We want to stay in light.
Well, it was a literal. You heard the threat in the audio yourself, and you saw I showed you from 2018 on all the jealousies, and how insane that was, and how I defended myself over and over and over and over and over, and then I was like, wait a minute, wake up call. But this person actually did a live threat on Facebook, mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hide it, and yet those little flying monkeys are supporting that. How does a person support that? You heard that message.
Well, I mean, they're unhealthy too. So.
Yeah. So just automatically
they'll support. It's just.
Yeah. But and anybody that saw that it was any sane person was done at that moment.
Right.
But of course then they all of a sudden became a liar, or one of my. I was sending in the bidding, which was funny because I couldn't even see the video until after. So I don't know how I sent anybody in.
Right.
I didn't know about it till it was downloaded and sent to me. So, but anyway, okay. So getting back to this though, so we have Dr. Ramani, am I saying
Dr.
it right?
Ramani.
Dr. Ramani. These are people who we encourage you to definitely
love her.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
This is
Ross Rosenberg.
Ross Rosenberg.
Yes.
I noticed he had like 50 million accreditations behind his name.
Yes, he's legit. You have a lot of life teachers, which they are wonderful because they've experienced. Actually, Ross Rosenberg, he's a psychotherapist, but he's also has life experience as well.
Right.
And so he was a victim, and he had to heal his own codependency, which is another what he calls SLDD disorder, which is self-love deficit disorder. And he says that self-love is the antidote for narcissism or narcissistic abuse. So if there is
the more self-love you have,
yes.
So we have to be careful with that. Again, the mirroring. So there's the narcissistic selfish love, and then there would be healthy self-love, because the Bible says love your neighbor
Yes.
as yourself.
Yes.
So everything has a
So
equal
yes.
part,
Mhm.
but we have to know what's proper, pure, and right.
Right.
Okay, so he talks about self-love is the antidote to the healing process of narcissism.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really good. That's really good.
Yes. So you know, that's when you start looking at yourself and stop looking at the narcissist and say, hey, what is it within me? Am I self-love deficient? And that's when you start working on those things, and then suddenly you have the most perfect, what he calls narcometer.
Yes.
You can. They'll say something, and wow, you're just like, okay.
I thought I had that. Was it
We have to be careful with that too, because like, oh yeah,
Right.
you're an arc, you're an arc,
No,
you're an arc, you're an arc.
And on that farm there was a narc.
But
a narc here, sorry.
you can have people who have narcissistic tendencies, and they're not necessarily a pathologic narcissist all the way on the other end there. But
Okay.
so yeah, we Lily's totally out. We're boring her to death.
So, and then let's go back to the codependency part, because I did read a whole entire list. There were things I didn't identify with at all, and there's things that I do identify with. The giving, you know, I have to really work on that.
Yes.
Because it's confusing to me, because as a Christian we want to give, and
Yes.
when you've been through hell and you know you were innocent, then you want to just say, oh, I want to help you, I want to help you.
Yes.
You don't have your children, then you find out these people are doing all these
Takers.
but they're also doing these horrible things, and they really shouldn't have kids, or at least in their safe care, you know. But I believe very much in biological family, and of course we know the system's corrupt, so it puts me in a very, very
Yes.
rock and a hard place in many cases. I noticed something with the addict personality. Addicts will come at you 100% and love you, and they will literally force themselves on you in many cases, and then all of a sudden they hate you. That is a very common thread, which is very similar to this whole narcissistic thing. They're all in, and then they're all out, even though they're never really all out. So,
Yeah.
that's another lesson.
Yeah.
We're not going to
You'll
talk
have
on
to
that.
tune in another day for
Tune
that
in
one,
next
folks.
time. Right. Whereas animals are the same all the time. Why can't
Yeah.
people learn from the puppies?
Yeah.
So, but codependency. So going back to codependency here. So let's say somebody's at a 1 or a 2.
Mm-hmm.
Can a 1 and a 2 codependent relationship work out well?
Yes, but they are going to have some problems. So if you have a +2 narcissist or +2 someone with narcissistic tendencies,
No, I need 2
and then you
codependents.
and
2
then
codependents.
very rarely do 2 narcissists and 2 codependents get together.
Oh,
And
very
when
good.
when
Okay.
when 2, and I shouldn't say narcissists, but people who are on the narcissistic side of the
Scale,
spectrum, it doesn't work. It never works, actually. Is it possible that you could maybe have 2 +1s? Yeah, that would actually function for quite some time.
Okay.
But then it would fall apart eventually. Usually you have to, and that's what the human magnet syndrome is all about. You attract the equal polarity. So if you're a
gotcha.
+1, you're gonna
Wow.
attract a -1.
Wow.
And there's always someone in the relationship, and that's healthy. You know, you can be a little more self-oriented, and the other person can be a little more others oriented. But it's a healthy balance.
A healthy balance.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, I'm very thankful to see a lot of healthy relationships, marriages, happy families that have lasted and then doing well. And we all have stuff. I mean, obviously stuff happens every day. So, but
opposites do attract, and that's what he's saying
Yeah.
in his book, and that's what he's highlighting here in the Continuum of Self.
right. And I want to encourage, and I would like to see more, more healthy relationships, and relationships happen on a whole anyway. In this quote unquote movement, I've seen the father's rights organization and the mother's, and I'm so against all of that because it's a gender war. A lot of times you've got nice people on both sides, but a lot of times you have highly abusive people on both sides. And they show their ugly faces. Sometimes they show it right away. Sometimes it takes a while to see it, but you see it. And it's a hatred of the opposite sex, which I think is, we know that's also demonic, and that's very much anti-Christ. Very, very bad. So, I mean, in a
Who is the healer of all?
God.
God.
Jesus.
And
So-
with the country moving far
way it's
from
moving.
that, it's just unfortunately, this is where we're going.
Yeah,
You know?
it's very sad. It's
It
very
is.
sad. Again, that does also fall under Jezebel, because Jezebel emasculates men. That's the eunuch. You know, there's a whole control thing, and it's male or female. It's not. A lot of times people think because Jezebel was a queen, it's only on females. That is not true. And actually, some of the worst Jezebelic spirits are in males, which is really bad. And you know, it's just very sad, because I believe that my role here is to articulate the communication that makes people understand what is actually happening, so that we can get away from it as much as possible. Because the courts, thank God, they're mostly down, and I believe God is going to crash them to a complete halt eventually, as repentance comes on the earth. Because there's going to be pockets of revivals, and eventually more and more repentance. The body of Christ, if you're not completely persecuted and killed, and you're still here, God will protect you if your job is to stay here, period. But to see as many healthy homes as possible, healthy children, because we have all fallen so far. We've given too much to the government. Well, actually, you're not supposed to give anything to the government. We've given our power over. We've taken it from the Lord, given it over to man, and man is doing a horrible job, obviously.
Yes.
And this is the outcome, is what we're looking at today. But it all falls back to the same very fundamental basics. God first, His order, His commandments, love your neighbor as yourself. You know, love covers all the commandments. If you have love, you're in the proper law. Yeah. And now, who suffers the most? These children are suffering. God will bring healthy people into your life, or healthier, I should say, and people just literally destroy the blessings that are coming in, but they pray for them. I see this all the time. I see the destruction on the home, this destruction on the children, and you're not going to make your children better. Actually, I believe you're going to continue to mass produce more narcissists as time goes on, or codependents as well. But I find that codependence will do the work. I find that codependence will go to therapy. I find that I've never seen a crazy person, a literal crazy person, okay, son of Sam, or anybody that I think I'm gonna go for help today. Like, you don't see that.
Someone on that side of the spectrum will go get help is when they have a point to prove, or when they want to try to manipulate the therapist in re-injuring the person that they're abusing. So they have a motive. So they'll go and they want to appear, they want to say, oh, well, you know, I'm going to therapy, and they want to appear that they're doing everything wonderful, but sometimes that can re-injure.
They're doing it to harm their victim.
Yes, and they'll try to get the therapist on board, and they're very convincing. And if you have a therapist that is not up to speed with these kind of characteristics, they can fall victim as well, unfortunately, and that can be very harmful to the codependent who's trying to
re-victimize the codependent.
Exactly.
Re-victimize the children.
Correct.
What were you telling me, or maybe it wasn't you, or did I just watch it on one of the programs where they use their children to, because I mean, we see this every day, where they're, the terminology that they use a lot in just what I do is alienation, and I've always clarified that, because an abuser will use that alienation term when it's genuinely, it's protecting the children, and then the judges today will take children from a protective parent because you alienated them from the abusive parent, and then they'll alienate the protective parent. So it's a crazy outcome.
It's just insane.
Yeah, but then there's narcissistic alienation, which is a true terminology of alienation. So remember, every word has a right and wrong to it. Always remember that. It's not all a cookie cutter. It's not all one size fits all. So the true alienation that a pathological narcissist will do is alienate children from healthy sources.
Yes.
Okay, so a healthy, loving parent, a healthy, loving step-parent, and we talked about step-parents the other day. If God says step-parents are okay, then it's okay. Who's our most famous step-parent in all of biblical history? Jesus' father. Not God, but Joseph, because he wasn't biological to Joseph. So there was a reason that God did that, because he's in his infinite wisdom, he's known the future, right? And so not everybody that fathers or mothers is appropriate, although I'm against all the adoption stuff, as we know. So, you know, if you know my history and you know what I do, and you follow me, you know how I feel about the whole foster care adoption industry. I do believe that there's people in the church that are led by God to foster kids. Sometimes it's just to protect them from the foster care system, okay? But biological children belong with biological family. I don't believe the whole family on both ends of the, genealogy are all evil and bad.
That's not saying, I mean,
So-
there's some really wonderful foster parents
There's
out
some
there.
wonderful, and that come
And-
out of, that's what I said,
yes.
come out of churches that are there to protect them from the foster care system.
Mhm.
Because a lot of these kids go through 20 homes a year,
Yeah.
and they're badly abused, sexually abused, and abused on every level. And it's abuse just by taking them, and the traumatic ways that they take them causes a lifetime of, that's where ACE research came out, adverse childhood experiences, which literally takes 20 years off their life and literally just pretty much destroys them for life. It takes a lifetime of therapy for these kids to get the sanity that they need, the healing that they need. And in my experience, when you deal with Christian counseling and you've got healing and deliverance and ministry behind it, children can heal much faster and be really set free, because God does set you free.
Yes.
Okay, but without that, a lot of these kids, it's really sad.
Mhm.
It's really sad. And so this is why I'm so strong on the healing. I'm so strong on, yes, I can sit here all day and help these families get their kids back. But what are we looking at in these homes? What are we looking at? What are you modeling to them? What drugs are you doing? How many people are you sleeping with? How many partners you have? How much time are you spending all day on the phone talking to 25 million people all day, paying no attention to them at all? I may do an hour live, but 24 hours a day I'm with my son. I'm at the basketball court, I'm at the skateboard park, I'm at the pool, I'm with him. Even if we're in the home together, you know what I'm saying? I'm teaching him to cook a meal, whatever. What are you doing with these children? You want them back, but what are you doing? Are they vegging out in a bedroom all day long? Do they see the light of day ever? Are they outside at all? Even if you don't have money, you don't have to have money to take them for a walk.
Right.
I'm not seeing this a lot of times in these homes. A lot of people talk to me in game, and they want your reputation to help them get their children back, and then they don't have any parental skills. The courts make it very difficult because they're forced to go back and forth from a healthy home sometimes to a very unhealthy home. This is not good. Do you have the support system of extended family? Do you have the support system of extended friends? These are important things, and so I turned Punish for Protecting over to Punish No More, Free to Protect, because I want to see people healed. I feel like the goal at this point is, if families don't start getting the healing that they need,
You have to break the cycle.
You have to break the
with
cycle.
healing. And
That was
that's, yeah, it's the only way to do
and
it.
stop bringing it into the generations, stop finger pointing at everybody else, start looking at yourself,
Mhm.
do the work.
Yeah.
Do the work, because this is not shameful to say we had whatever in our past, however, and I'm talking in general,
Mhm.
whatever has happened in anybody's life, whatever relationships you may have gotten into. We were talking about this before. I have healthy relationships that ended, and they ended healthy.
Mhm.
But do you have a history of every relationship ended bad? That's something to start looking at you at that point, not the other
Yes,
people.
the common denominator.
The common denominator. We can all meet, and we have to still look at ourselves when we meet this type,
Mhm.
and we're doing the work though,
Yes.
okay? But at the same token, if this was all you met, then you have to say, wait, who's to blame here, okay? But if you have a mix here of, oh, well, we're still friends today, everything is healthy,
Mhm.
it's not some weirdy thing, you have to look at the different aspects of your life and the different friendships and the different meaningful friendships, the different endings. I look at the endings of how things ended. Everybody knows, I know my book, okay? You lived through it, you're another person, I have person after person that lived through that time that we went through with my son. So if people know the true story, I've got people attacking me that it's not a true story now. I laughed, okay? First of all, it would have never gotten past the publishing company, because it's a real publishing company,
Mhm.
if it wasn't true. It couldn't be billed that way. They go through law firms, okay? Not that we believe in the legal, but I don't always. But the point is that, even in that, I'm seeing a lot of positivity now, so I'm willing to go in that realm. I have done, and even my whole family has done things to enforce as best healthy as we possibly can, okay? In a very unfortunate situation, if this was safely cut off back then, we wouldn't have to continue this relationship. Unfortunately, we were forced. So, and that's what a lot of families suffer all the time. So you can get away from somebody who's harmed you, but the children can't.
Right.
So you can get a protection order to protect you as an adult, but what about the children? If you're not safe, how much
How are the
more are
children?
they safe?
Yeah.
But this is some of the crazy making that this country and these courts and this nonsense and people and narcissists, which I've always said that every judge is a narcissist. I believe that, okay? In the family court realm anyway. that every one of them is a narcissist, and I started doing classes on narcissism about a year and a half ago, and I was starting to see it, not what I see now because my eyes are wide open now, but I started noticing traits, and I started being able to make the correlation between the family court judges and narcissism and Jezebel, which is again the same thing.
Well, that's how you get the re-victimization, because they side with the narcissist, and you know, so
Because they are a narcissist,
correct.
so they're familiar with the narcissist.
And they can't understand healthy. They don't know what that is. But I wouldn't say all judges are like that. I mean,
Family court.
I did very well in family court, getting you know, showing what was happening, and getting my order of protection, and you know, so I that was in
Now
my
they
favor.
put her in family court even though doesn't have children. This is a whole other.
Yeah, it's family court because
it would have been a
it's
whole different ballgame
relationship.
if it was children.
Yes, there's no children involved.
Because if you had children, even though you had a protection order, those children would not have been kept safe. There would have been a demand of custody. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. But you did do very well. You did do very well.
Yeah.
But you also have like zero background whatsoever. Like you're very highly reputable, long term, consistent job, same place for a million years. You present yourself unlike a lot of people that come in, you know, that I witness all the time. That's why they want to use your reputation, my reputation, for their support many times, and it's really something. So that, believe me, that all aids in your favor too. Or with people deal with, it does change a lot too. A lot of times what they'll do with a person who's emotionally distraught over being abused, they will use that emotion against her.
Yes.
Because they'll say she's crazy, which is so unfair.
But that's why it's so important to, I mean, yes, because, you know, when you're a victim and you're in the court system, it's hard not to show that emotion.
Of course.
But it's so important actually to speak with a therapist prior to going into court, and knowing how to maintain yourself, because unfortunately they are looking at that and saying, oh yeah, she, you know,
she's crazy.
Yeah, she's everything that he says she is.
Right.
And so yeah, you have to really you know, pray and
go in peaceful.
Yes, go in peaceful. Have someone you love with you, and everything will work out. But it's hard to maintain that composure after the abuse.
And a lot of times
seeing your narcissist or your abuser is often very triggering.
Yeah, like trapping you in an elevator,
Yeah.
making you feel awkward to come out.
Walk off the other side of the road.
There you are.
Yeah.
You know, and of course that's going to be very triggering. And that, so for me as an ADA advocate, I clear that up so that they don't use that, because that's actually, they're not even legally allowed to use that. There are specific HIPAA and American Disability Act violations that they're doing against the person that they've caused this disability to. So that's where I step in, and that's where I clear it up, because they're not allowed to use that emotional distress on a person.
Yeah.
Let's face it, if you got hit by a car and you're screaming, it's no different than saying, oh my God, look at this person, this is a raving lunatic on the floor.
But there is
they just got hit by a car.
there's a real PTSD that happens.
That's right.
And you know, the triggers are going to be there, and especially seeing your abuser in court, that's really tough. So yeah, there has to be those things in place to protect the victim.
That's right, and that's where I come in with the ADA advocacy, to protect the victim, you know. So, I mean, like I just got done saying, if a person got hit by a car and they're laying here screaming, you're not going to go, oh my God, raving lunatic.
Yeah.
But that's what they're doing to the emotionally abused person or physically abused person in the court when they're being triggered, you know. And it takes a lot of work, especially if it's been ongoing. If it's something that happened maybe in a short period of time, it's one thing. But if it's ongoing abuse and it's ongoing triggering, and now you're before a judge that doesn't know you, that already has an agenda, because they do, and that's another topic, but they already have an agenda to keep you there forever, for 18 years if they can, 21 years, 26 if it's a disabled child or children. So they're there because that's where the money gets generated through the family court system. You know, and you did very well, and I also know that judge, so I've seen that judge in action before. So for me, it's like just knowing the judge and what they do and how I've seen with other cases. But I believe too that you didn't have children, so you're not somebody who he would want to keep in there. So he'll just do the right thing and be done with you, because you're not a financial asset to that court in any way, shape, or form. So putting an end to it and doing the right thing was more an easy thing in your particular case. Whereby somebody that has children, it doesn't matter. If you were the same woman with children with this man, it would have been a completely you'd never leave there. You'd
Yeah.
be ball and chain to the family court till those children were 18 or higher. And this is what I see all over the country, sadly. And I know that people that are watching are going, yeah, right now, because they know, they dealt with it.
Yep.
I've had mothers
I
put in
have
prison
friends
for no
that,
reason.
dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, I had, you know, you know what I went through. I mean, that was insane.
Absolutely.
Insane,
Yep.
okay? Off the charts insane. I mean, this is a one-time protection order that you know of. Imagine having 12 in a row and the last one being criminal and they still don't do the right thing. So there's no excuse for that. And then there's people that make false allegations, and we know that, and that's the court's bread and butter. And they have those people, but innocent people shouldn't suffer for the crimes of other people, you know. And it's just like getting in a relationship with somebody because someone did some harm to them. Now you're going to have to pay for their harm.
Right.
And that's what we see all the time too. And I fight for good fathers and good mothers. Matter of fact, as Christians, don't we believe in good fathers? Don't we believe
Yes, we
in
do.
Father God? Don't we love Father God? Don't we, you know what I'm saying? So you've got women out there that love that protective order that God gives us, and then you're out there in the world full of wolves in sheep's clothing, and they're saying one thing, but they're really not living like the proper male order should be, because the proper male order would be automatically to protect you, not to hurt you,
Yes.
you know, not to gang stalk you, not to have gangs. And when I say gang stalk, that doesn't mean physical in the street with the
Right.
gang stalking that's what's done on social media.
Yes.
Okay, that's gang stalking. You guys can look that up.
That's what the cowards do.
That's what the cowards do. Okay, so and it can be male or female, because obviously Jezebel was a woman, full blown, and men are out there that I see the most innocent, nice guys. It's always the nice guy that gets treated like garbage, and that this very thing we're talking about is flipped in reverse against them. And one of the ladies, I forget which one it was, on YouTube, she was talking about that particular woman. She was kind of talking about the characteristics of that type of woman, and what she does to the man, and how she demeans his value, and she demeans his position to want to support financially, or and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, because we're not saying that a woman can't support financially. That's not where I'm going. But demeans his manhood in every way possible. So she takes him down, basically, makes a eunuch of him, and then controls him completely, and then discards him. So there's nothing left of that man, you know, and it's really sad. I don't know if you've ever seen that yourself.
No, and you know, that's men are very prideful. They pride themselves on taking care of the family, and that's where a woman can really get a man where it hurts.
Yeah, destroy him there.
Exactly.
Destroy him there. And we see that a lot where the family court will drain him of all his finances. And this, you know, and these are the good fathers that I mean, to me, I look at it this way: if you're going to financially support your children, that's like breathing. That's just something that you take your own food away from yourself, and you feed, and you clothe, and you do the things that it's just automatic. So to me, I won't even walk into a court and ask for child support, because if you don't want to do it, that's between you and God. Let Him deal with you.
Yes.
I would never put a penny into that system, because for every dollar of child support, the court gets 12. It's just a con game. And then they take nice dads and they end up in jail, and they're paying, you know, they're losing their job. I know a man that was he's an engineer. He's an engineer, so had excellent, works for the union, and because of family court, matter of fact, I saved him from going to jail. I made sure that he got his children all the time, okay, because she was the flake in this particular case, and she was trying to use the child support syndrome game, and we saved him, thank God. And actually he did a live with me, and he talked about how great it was, and his kids are always with him. But oh my God, what they did to this poor man. I mean, because of the union, they would give him a job after a job, because he'd keep losing jobs, not on his own fault. He had a perfect work history before the divorce. Now they were trying to take all his money, and he ended up on unemployment, and I think possibly food stamps, from making a fortune because of how the system works. So that narcissistic thing is neither male nor female, or it is either or, is my point. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So did you want to wrap up with anything else before we close?
I think we covered a lot.
Okay, so a lot of food for
give
thought.
you the honors of wrapping up.
All right, well, thank you for being here, and maybe we'll do this again, because this is pretty cool.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I've been learning a lot.
Yes,
Binge
we've
watch.
been learning a lot from
Give
each
the
other.
names. Give the names again of all the ones that they should look up on YouTube.
So we have Ross Rosenberg is my favorite. A friend of mine introduced me to Ross, and we have Lisa Romano, and we have goodness, Dr. Romney, of course. So those are my 3 favorites.
Susan, did we get her? Is it Susan Romano too, or Susan? Oh well.
I can't think offhand, but we'll get back to you.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Adios. And who's snoring? She asked. This is the snorer, everybody.
In case you heard snoring,
Yep.
that was
There's the
Chloe.
guilty partner. All right. God bless everybody. Love you.